This is Conversations with My Terminally Ill Wife, a series where my wife and I chronicle her experience with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. No topic is off limits as we discuss traditional and non-conventional treatments, mindset and mentality, faith and family, and all the things that have helped us through this journey. So podcast number 0.01, because we've recorded another podcast, but it wasn't, we just thought we should do another podcast that's before that. That's an intro into what this whole podcast series is going to be about. And this one is called, the series is called Conversations with My Terminally Ill Wife. And maybe just briefly let the listeners know how you're terminally ill, what your diagnosis is.
My diagnosis is metastatic breast cancer with mets in my brain and my liver.
And metastatic breast cancer is a terminal illness, meaning there's no cure for it.
Yes. There is some people that survive for many years, but I think the percentage of people that survive, like that gets cured from this, is 2% of people.
Yeah, so they don't really consider it that rate as a curable disease. And also, I think the numbers, as we were told in 2017, when you were first diagnosed with metastatic breast, with mets to your lungs, to your liver, my apologies, was that 50% of people pass away within the first 2 years, and the other 50% after that. But I haven't looked at the stats lately. I don't think it's typically longer than 2 years for the rest of the 50%.
Yes.
So what we, and why we were both chatting about this and doing a podcast series, we've done a bunch of videos, a bunch of different things on your journey and the different treatments you've done, some unconventional treatments, especially in Canada for going overseas and doing stuff, which we are right now. Again, we are in Germany at the moment. We're recording this in our apartment that we're renting in between treatments in Germany. And we wanted to talk about some different topics and different things and just kind of give that message of your story and different things, different aspects we think that could maybe help people or help be interesting for people to hear, and also to help other Canadians or other people anywhere in the world, for that matter, that are dealing with serious illnesses.
That is running out of options as well.
Yeah, maybe let's go quickly into, for this one, I just want this to be a short one, introduction into things. And again, we're going to go into multiple different topics about, treatment you've done here in Germany, how well that worked in 2017, from being, given weeks left to live to extending your life by years, until stuff reoccurred just recently on your liver, to care that we've got in Canada that's been amazing in certain aspects, and in other aspects there's some big challenges with the Canadian healthcare. And also those other elements that you use, or things that you use to stay positive or stay hopeful during this process, and your mindset in this this battle, where kind of the end result is not the result you want.
No.
So tell us a little bit about, that. I think for me, besides being your husband, I find very interesting and also amazing about you and I think this is about humans in general when they're in these kind of situations, but the idea of battling and pushing while you know things are, like I kind of use the analogy in my head of somebody running a marathon, and when you get to the end of the marathon, you're done. You've conquered it. You've finished the marathon. But with these kind of diseases, you kind of know like you're going to be doing that. You're going to be battling, pushing through that marathon, and knowing in the back of your head that next marathon might start right when you cross the finish line. Maybe it's a few days after you cross the finish line. Maybe it's a few months past the finish line, but it's not going to end until you can't move anymore or you can't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very hard and difficult thing to mentally think about and to keep pushing when you know the end outcome. So we'll go into this in another podcast, I'm sure, a bit more of this stuff, but how do you do that? That's a big question. How do you keep pushing? I mean, maybe give some context as well about what you've been through very shortly. I mean, you've had, as of now, 13 surgeries in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Go through those different surgeries that you had for us. Starting with the first one, with your first diagnosis.
I first had a double mastectomy. And then I had 2 surgeries to do the reconstruction of the breasts. Then I had an ovarectomy where they removed the ovaries. And I had...
And maybe we should also state, I mean, you are the BRCA2 mutation, the breast cancer mutation, mm-hmm. which is why you decided to take out your ovaries as well. There wasn't cancer there. It was just the chances of it spreading to your ovaries or becoming in your ovaries is much higher.
Yes. It also... That's the next place it went to for my mom after her breast cancer. It spread to her ovaries. So in my head, I just said, please just take them out. And I had a reoccurrence, another lump under my armpit that they removed. We also found a little tiny lump that was removed also on that same side, but luckily it wasn't cancer. We also did the surgery in Germany to put the port into my liver to give me the chemo that way. I had a hip replacement. I had 3 brain surgeries, and now again I had the liver. How do you say that word?
You had an abdominal immunization.
Immunization.
Yeah,
yes.
Where they going through your artery in your groin to infuse your abdomen area with chemotherapy here in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
More concentrated regional chemotherapy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess in between that, what you're missing is your first diagnosis when you were 30 years old, 2011. You did 6 cycles of chemotherapy.
Yeah, treatment-wise, I went through the whole, the regular chemo they give to breast cancer patients. So 6 rounds of chemotherapy. And at that time, they didn't see the need of doing radiation as well. So they removed the breasts. I did chemo. And then I went on tamoxifen, which is a hormone blocker, because I'm estrogen positive and progesterone
negative.
progesterone
And
positive as
this
well.
is the first podcast, so we go into the second podcast that we've already recorded, but we thought was going to be the first, and it's not the first. But to also reiterate that you have a bit of speech issues sometimes. Partly, one part will be your accent from being from South Africa and English not being your first language, even though your English is good.
No.
But the main part is that you had one of your tumors was that bled in your brain, caused damage to the speech area of your brain.
Yes.
So if she's stuttering or having troubles saying a word, that's from that.
Yeah.
That
It's specific words that I struggle with, and if I get tired, it's even worse. So.
we're getting a little bit later in the day today. So.
Yes. I'll try my best.
Yeah. So as people might not know, with breast cancers, you can have estrogen positive. You can have a bunch of different variables within breast cancer itself, and different things that can be how aggressive the breast cancer is, how aggressive the cancer is, how well it reacts to treatment, how likely it will be to metastasize, to move into other parts of the body, and also for yourself being estrogen positive, meaning it looks like, or from what they understand, it kind of feeds on, the idea is that it feeds on estrogen. And so they give you estrogen blockers, as well as you had your ovaries out. So you went into menopause
when I was 30.
When you were 30? But you got your period again after.
So usually the chemo takes your period away for a few months.
Yeah.
And then I got it back for a bit, and then I took the ovaries out.
Yeah.
That's
and so you went kind of straight, but how old were you then, you think, when you took your ovaries out? 32?
31.
31. So you've been in menopause for, you're 40 now, 9 years.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people
plus the while I was doing chemo as well, those 6 months.
And for a lot of women that would maybe go into early menopause, they would help them with maybe hormone replacement. They're doing hormone blockers.
The opposite, yes.
So how was that? How was having no estrogen?
Terrible. There's a reason why God gave us estrogen. It has a lot of side effects, and some people get it worse than that others. But for me, I couldn't sleep since I got that. It was mood swings and lots of other things that maybe is a bit private.
Yeah, I think we can talk about it here as well. Estrogen, as in testosterone in males, as a male thing, is kind of the sex driving hormone or so, where it's a thing that males get when they're teenagers, that drive sort of those teenage things and desires, or as young males. And estrogen is the female kind of equivalent, I guess, sort of, of that hormone.
Mm-hmm.
So with no estrogen, lack of libido.
Yes, that was really hard for me because I was only 30, and that's kind of your prime in life for that kind of
activities. Extracurricular activities.
Yes, and it also
our daughters, if they listen to this, part of the reason of doing this podcast series for other people, but also one of the big things is for our daughters to have. When we recorded the first one, that is not the first one. This is the first one. This is 0.01, number one podcast. At that time, we weren't coming to Germany again, and you had made the decision that you weren't doing any more treatment. So at that time, the title of this podcast series that I had in my mind was Conversations with My Dying Wife, because it was just kind of more not waiting, but seeing when the inevitable would happen, which with metastasis back to your liver and still stuff in your brain. So
Yeah, so another side effect I forgot about is that was horrible, which I don't get that much anymore, but it's the hot flashes. It is really awful. I know for people that haven't experienced it, or for men maybe, they think, oh, that's not too bad. It really is bad. It wakes you up at night. I remember times where I was driving with my kids in the car, and it's in the middle of winter, and I had to crank up the air conditioning, and they're like, "Mommy, I'm cold," but I'm like, I'm having a hot flash," and it's you can feel it from your toes, and it moves up, and you just want to rip your clothes off.
I remember it's funny when I think we asked the doctor, the gynecologist, or the person after you had the surgery is like, how quick do you lose your hormones? Now, you know, because you think of something.
The effect of the hormones, yeah.
Yeah, the effect of the hormones, because you think for some things, you know, or you think of medications, how it kind of builds up in your system. You can miss taking things for whatever. Because you literally, I remember driving you home to our home in Collingwood, Ontario, and we were driving home from Toronto from your surgery. And, you know, within an hour after you've left recovery, left the hospital, we're driving, and you told me you were having a hot flash. And I was like, it doesn't happen that fast. You're kind of thinking this up, like this is untrue. And then we talked to the doctor, and they said, no, like it's like the cutoff for hormones is like immediate.
Yeah.
It's not like there's no build up there. It's like it's gone.
Yeah.
It's probably the same for testicles or something as well, in the sense of testosterone. Yeah. I think if you have your testicles taken off or whatever issues.
I've heard some other people saying
it's probably your testosterone's gone.
Yeah.
It's immediate. And I, knowing from some athletes and some other things that I've read and looked at in documentaries, you know, testosterone for males, in a sense, and even for females too, if they want to take testosterone but like, you know, injections of testosterone for recovery, it's like, it's immediate.
Yes.
You feel good right away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a big deal, a big challenge. We're here in Germany again, as I said earlier. We first came here in 2017. I think we'll do a podcast just on
Germany,
what we're doing here for treatment in Germany. But a little bit of background on that, I got a little context on that, is that you first had 2017 the diagnosis to your liver with metastatic breast cancer there.
Basically, I was in remission for almost 5 years. I usually use my date for the cancer in May 11th is my date, because that's the day they gave me my double mastectomy. So I was going to be cancer-free for 5 years in May, but then I had a reoccurrence in November of 2015. And then was when they cut that out. And then I did radiation, because we didn't do it the first time. So then we did radiation when that recurrence popped up in my armpit. And then after that, I was good for about a year. Then we went to South Africa. I didn't
more than a year. It was 2015. 2016, you were good the whole year.
Yes.
We went to South Africa in December of 2016.
2016, yes. We came back. I haven't felt anything. Then we went skiing. I remember it so clearly that day. We met Sarah, Paul's girlfriend. It was a wonderful day. We were skiing, but I fell. And there was a big fall.
It was a big fall. I
Yeah,
remember
big fall.
I kind of laughed when you fell. It was I feel bad now. Like, but it was like early spring. Was it March? Was it before March break? Around March break? And so the snow was getting a bit slushy, and we were skiing at Georgian Peaks private club there. Sorry, we were skiing at Alpine, a private club there. We had some passes there for some work I did with them, and I remember just looking back, and you just did like this. You just went like straight to your face. And I thought it was kind of funny at first. Like I kind of laughed. You only see somebody fall, but then you realize they're kind of hurt.
Yeah. So I got really hurt. I actually broke a rib. And because I broke a rib, we kind of knew that it's a broken rib. And then I went to go see a chiropractor and a physiotherapist, and I couldn't get rid of. I also saw what's her name? What's her title? Anyways, another kind of doctor.
Sangoma.
No, and then I couldn't get rid of this pain. I was like, how is a broken rib this sore for this long? So finally, I asked the doctor, can we just do a scan just to see what's going on in the rib there? And then it was a very big shock for me that I remember that day so clearly. It was one of the worst days of my life. That news. I remember exactly the doctor came in after the scan and he said, can you guys come to my office?
Well, it was the radiologist. That's
Yes.
a friend of ours.
And so
that I knew a little bit from before, from doing some work with the Collingwood Hospital. Great man. Very, very nice and always has been amazing to us. And so he saw stuff, brought us in. And I remember, it's embarrassing. I didn't, I had to leave. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wasn't prepared for what he was telling me, and I knew from how breast cancer is, as soon as it spreads anywhere outside the breast, that it's a terminal disease.
Yes.
And so when he said he could see from the x-ray on the ribs stuff on the liver, or actually, sorry, he saw stuff on the liver through an x-ray, brought us back there to do a CT scan of the liver. Mm-hmm. And then he told us that there's something in the liver.
Yes.
I mean, the likelihood then, if you've had breast cancer before, that it's metastatic is extremely high.
And then I was kind of in denial about that. So I actually asked for a biopsy. And actually,
I don't know. Did you ask for a biopsy, or did they make you do a biopsy?
No, I said
they would have done treatment.
I don't believe this could not be. Maybe this is not cancer. I said maybe because they said that sometimes people have those birthmarks, and I knew I had that on my liver, and so I was like, well, maybe it's just that.
Yeah, I remember all these times.
And then so I asked for a biopsy, and I shouldn't have because that was so painful. It was not a surgery, but they also numbed me and I was in the OR for that as well. So it doesn't really count as a surgery, but I just remember that was so painful. And now I also learned that sometimes biopsies is not the greatest thing to do because sometimes it can spread the cancer. But anyways,
I think there's kind of there. I don't know if there's total. or like, research or other things on that. I think there's maybe, again, I mean, I'm going to do some,
Suspicions about it.
yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of disclaimer here that we do another video as well. And we should do at the beginning of each video is that Narda and myself are not medical experts.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Well, I do know a lot of things. I keep joking that I could be a nurse from all the things I've learned now. I know how to give you IV. And no, but we're not medical experts. We're not making claims or anything. We are just talking through our experiences and our understanding of things. So this is not black and white. Cancer is very
complicated.
Extremely complicated, and it's extremely complicated when you're an expert in the field. So please use this as a guidance and information, but we are not close to the absolute answers on anything, and we're just telling a story and telling our experience. So we're not, again, just a disclaimer. Sorry, we're not experts on this. So please, But
yes.
So with that story of, your liver, they did the things. I think it's a radical thing to think that you have metastatic cancer, and to guess that maybe it's not metastatic cancer is also a thing. So I think you needed to do the biopsy, and in most cases they do a biopsy. And for people that don't know, with that, in the sense of breast cancer, when it metastasizes, when it goes other places, how they know it is breast cancer somewhere else in the liver, or breast cancer in the lungs, or breast cancer in the brain, or breast cancer in the bones is like they can do a biopsy of it. They can take those cells of it and they can look at them and they can see that it's a breast cancer. It matches your breast cancer you've had before. It matches the same things. Yes. It's not a new cancer.
It's always been the same
but it's not like it's not a guess. They do this stuff. They did a biopsy. It's breast cancer on your...
Yes. And the doctors were pretty sure that it was. But I myself wanted to make sure.
You want to believe that it's not. I remember going for mountain bike rides and doing other things and just being like, just praying and hoping and being like, yeah, they came back. They're wrong.
I know. I was going through everything. I went on the internet and I was like, oh, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. Yeah. All the stuff I could find for liver.
Is, the alternate really sucks because the alternate is not. There's treatment they can do, but it's still a terminal disease.
Yes.
So yes, of course you're going to want to hope and pray and do all these things that it's not that.
Yes.
But it goes back. This is going to jump back a little bit to a funny story. It's funny now for us because it happened so long ago, and we can think back on it. But before you were first diagnosed with breast cancer, our youngest daughter Olivia was 1 year old, just over 1 year old. And you were still breastfeeding. And so you found the lump in your armpit. So for women, feeling your armpits for checking for lumps is also a big deal.
Very important.
Yes. You couldn't feel in your breast because your breasts were,
it was your breastfeeding. The tumors were so tiny.
You felt it.
You couldn't feel
when
it.
you were cleaning your armpit in the shower. You felt it. I can remember that distinctly. You told me that on your 30th birthday. You felt it in your armpit. I'm like, okay, well, let's go get it checked. We talked to a doctor. We did things. They set up a thing for a mammogram. I remember going with you to the Milton Hospital. Did we go to the Milton Hospital for the mammogram?
Like a clinic.
Why did we go there? Oh, because our doctor was in Georgetown still.
Yes.
We were living in Kitchener, but our doctor was in Georgetown then, and then we went there. And I remember sitting outside waiting for you forever for the mammogram. And then one of the ladies from the imaging let me come inside to be with you while they did more imaging. And now thinking of that was like a telling tale. Like they could see something, but they didn't want to. They can't say that they see something. They're not the person that reads the report. It's not their place and their things, the protocol to say anything. But obviously they could see the tumor on your breast.
Mm-hmm.
And they allowed me to come in because they wanted to do more imaging. They did that imaging. And then we waited and waited, like weeks, maybe a week or so.
We went to Mexico for our first family vacation.
After? Oh, yes, we did. We did.
Yes.
We went to Mexico.
Because when we came back from Mexico, there was a message on our answering machine on our phone. And I just knew that was it.
No.
Yes. They called me to tell me that I have to... Oh, wait.
No.
I had to... It was them calling me from ultrasound.
Yes.
And then we went to Mexico. And in Mexico, I remember we were kind of a little bit stressed because we knew there was something, but we didn't know yet. So then when I came home, I saw the message on the answering machine, and that was the doctor asking me to go for a mammogram. And then we went for the mammogram.
And then, well, one of my best friends now and good friend and colleague of mine, I was kind of ranting to about, you've had
how long it's been.
Yeah, we've had the mammogram done. They called me in. I sat there with you. We haven't heard anything back. And I knew his dad was a surgeon, but I didn't really know his dad did a lot of surgeries with cancers and with breast cancers. And he said, well, my mom runs my dad's clinic and my dad's a surgeon for this. Maybe you can get the report and see what's in and bring it to my dad, and he can look at it and maybe he can take over care. So that's what happened. I drove to the Milton Hospital. I picked up a CD of the mammogram. I brought it to my friend Tad's father. He looked at it. He brought us into his office. He sat us down. He said, I'm 90% sure this is breast cancer. Mm-hmm. We'll do a biopsy to make sure that it is breast cancer, but I'm 90% sure it is. I mean, he's seen a lot of it, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. He knew how it looked typically, and he booked a surgery for 2 weeks from that appointment, knowing that as soon as the results came back from the biopsy to say that it was for sure breast cancer, that surgery is already booked. So this is kind of that's how these podcasts work. A long story that goes into another story that goes into another story. But the rabbit hole is deep.
So many branches on the story.
But what I was trying to get to quicker with this is that when they did the biopsy of your liver, it was awful. When they did the biopsy of your breast, it was also awful because they literally told you, when we saw his father he was saying, okay, you're going to need to do a biopsy. You're going to need to do it in 2 days from now, and then we're going to need to do surgery, likely. Mm-hmm. You need to stop breastfeeding today. Mm-hmm. So you're breastfeeding our daughter, Olivia.
She was 14 months, yes.
So for those of you who don't know, who are not married or not female and haven't had kids or haven't breastfed before, you can't just kind of stop breastfeeding. Like, your breasts keep producing milk.
Yes.
And you produced a lot of milk.
Yep.
So your breasts are extremely engorged in milk and painful. Yeah. And you go in for biopsy and tell the people what happened because they had problems getting to the things.
Yes. So, well, first off, my daughter was so unhappy because she was breastfeeding, and now all of a sudden I'm denying her the breast.
And if you know our youngest daughter, you will know that she was very upset that she can't eat.
Yes.
She's kind of like me. She gets pretty hangry.
Anyway, so that was a bit of a very sad for me that I have to take my baby off immediately. And then the funny part of this is that I went to the biopsy, and because the tumors in the breast was so tiny, they couldn't just do one needle.
When,
It didn't
and for
get
people to
it.
understand, like how they do a biopsy on a breast, they need to take a piece of skin off the tumor or the tumor area to check that. So they shoot a needle in, say he's got to shoot in an inch or so or more,
Yep.
and it bites off basically
Piece of the
piece
tumor.
of skin and pulls it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's doing this, and if you
And I
miss,
think they did it 5 or 6 times, and every time they shot the needle in, there was milk shooting out of the hole.
so when they pull the needle out, you'd shoot milk out the
Yes.
hole. Yeah.
So I was lying there with my breast punctured 5 times and the milk squirting out. It's very funny, but not funny.
Yeah, funny now, not so funny then.
Yes.
So maybe for the first 0.1 podcast, we need to wrap up here just to keep it a little bit concise. Talking about your story, a bit of the background on that. The next episode, we are going to go into us more, how we met, that kind of story and that background, your background growing up in South Africa, your mom passing away when you were 7 years old, those different things. And we have a lot of other topics to go into for this podcast series, and hopefully some guest kind of people, some other people we bring on, some people we've used with treatment here in Germany, some other people that have also gone through these things, and some insight and some things for people to understand, and I think just people to learn and to grow through the series. So, what do you want to come from this the podcast?
Well, I think that I didn't really answer your question you asked in the beginning. How did I do it? How did I do it?
How do you deal with
with all these things? Because the reason
you use beer?
the reason I got so
just
tired this last diagnosis is that I found that throughout this 10 years that I've had the cancer, that every time you go through something, a treatment, a surgery, you take so long to recover. And in the beginning, it's your body does it easily. The later you go, the harder it gets for your body to heal. Also, the way I deal with this was not as easy for me in the beginning. It gets better and easier for me as the time goes on. So
like learning skills and how to deal with.
Yes. Like for example, people don't see what goes on behind the treatments, how you feel, how sick you are, how you almost feel like you want to die because of the way you feel, of chemo. Radiation, they told me and Brian that it's going to feel like a bad sunburn. And the radiation was in my armpit. And we got in and it was okay. And then a month later, because that's when the side effects hit you, is a month later.
Well, I mean, I think radiation takes a long time to work its way out or work through, or however it works. I mean, if you think of it like if you've watched, sci-fi movies or other things on nuclear things and like nuclear problems, or if you know about those things, it's like you could have a bunch of nuclear radiation go onto you right now and not have any issues. It's going to take time for it to go out of your body. And that is the same for radiation treatment for chemo
Yes.
or for cancer.
Yes.
Is that, and especially you had a lot of done to your armpit.
25 rounds in my armpit, which is very soft skin. And so for me, I honestly felt like I was dragged behind a truck on a gravel road. That's what I felt like.
Well, I mean, they said when they said it was like, I remember being very mad and calling and asking for said we need more home help because we had 2 small kids there and I was working and you were in agony.
I could not do anything.
And being told that beforehand that it was going to be like a bad sunburn.
Yeah, we were not prepared. Your parents were away; they were in Florida.
It wasn't like a bad sunburn. It was like you were burnt with an iron.
Yes, like my skin was pulled off.
Because you had all this fluid coming out of your armpit. And I remember asking them, like, this is like liquid coming out. I'm like, well, that's lymph fluid.
Yes.
Because all the lymph fluid's coming out because you don't have any skin.
The skin was gone. Yes. It was extremely painful.
Awful.
And from that is where I got a lot of problems with my mobility in my arm. I could not play tennis anymore, and I love tennis. I love it, but I can't play it anymore because I don't have the mobility, and I also have a really ugly armpit. It looks like burnt skin. It looks like my armpit got burnt. So there's all these things that builds up over the years, all these scars, all these hair loss, and it's never really the same again. And as a young woman, that's very hard to deal with. You lose your hair, you lose your eyebrows.
I think you dealt with those things better than. I think before this treatment we're doing now, where you were kind of not wanting to do any treatment anymore, I think what was really breaking you down in my eyes was losing the ability to do all the little things that you love. And those little things that are not little things, but those things that are important that people have. Like, okay, now your hip has problems. We'll go into that later, why you had to have a hip replacement, but that was to do with cancer treatment. So you can't ski, one of your favorite things to do. You have problems walking. You have issues with lots of different things.
Mm-hmm. It's sleeping. Like if somebody would tell you, Brian, that you can't ride your bike anymore, how would you feel?
No, yes. It's taking away all your things you love.
Yes. Skiing is really one of my favorite things. I couldn't do that this winter. Paddleboarding is one of my favorite things. I can't do that anymore. And yoga. Those 3 things were absolutely my favorite things to do, and all 3 of them I can't do anymore.
It's slowly kind of breaking you down. I think as treatment goes on and on and on, you're staying positive. But you're also getting broken down and broken down and broken down as it goes. Mm-hmm. But I think that's also the amazing thing about you, which makes this what people want to hear things and listen to you is that somehow you were able to bring back things again now.
And that's why I post so many things about enjoy the little things in life. Enjoy the little things. Because even those little things that you think is nothing, you take it for granted, those are the big things when you're sick.
Being able to cook, being able to have a coffee,
doing groceries, going for a walk,
making your kids lunch.
Yes.
I know when you've been sick, and I think I'm gonna wrap this up kind of soon because we're going on longer. We're always going to keep going longer on these things. Yes. But I know from you, mentally, when you're sick in bed, you're very down emotionally.
Yes.
As soon as you're able to do things that are simple, maybe not drive, maybe not, but as soon as you're able to help our kids, make them lunches, make dinner, even if it makes you exhausted doing it,
Yeah.
your the way that you act, the way that your emotions are, is so much better.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when you're just laying in bed, you'll ask me and worry that you're dying. When you're able to do these little things, as little as, again, as like making people a lunch,
Mm-hmm.
you don't think the same way.
No. So concentrating on the little things that I enjoy, like petting my dog,
Yeah.
making food, going for a walk, even then going to the grocery store and
They have those things that like people, a lot of us will get annoyed with, like, oh, I gotta make dinner again. Oh, I gotta do laundry. Oh, I gotta do these things. It's like, if you are sick laying in bed, you would much rather be doing all those things.
mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? You'd much rather be doing laundry all day long
Yeah.
than feel like you're dying in bed.
Yeah.
Because at least you feel productive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so what carried me through these things in the beginning, when it was just breast cancer, it was different for me. I thought I was gonna be cured, but then it came back, and then from there onwards, people always told me, "How do you do this? How are you going through this? How are you not a negative? How are you doing this?" And I think it changed my mind that for some reason, it's almost like God put this on my path for a reason. And in my head, I see it that way. And I see it not as a burden on me. I'm not like, oh, poor me, I have cancer. No, I see it as an opportunity to help others.
And that's
to
stuff we're going to go into more
inspire others.
in
And
later
so
podcasts.
But that is my main
Your faith.
drive.
And
My
faith, I think, yeah, we'll do a bunch of different ones on that topic as well. But faith is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Faith is not an absolute. You know, we can't say that God is real. I mean, you can't prove to other people that God is real. You can't prove that God is real. No one can. And anybody who says that you shouldn't believe. But we choose to believe. And that faith that you have, and that's the whole thing of faith, in something bigger and a bigger reason, is what helps you to move through.
Yes.
And that even if it's not true, having that mental place where you can believe that is true, then that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It gives you a purpose.
But we also believe it's true. But, I mean, you know, we're definitely going to have people that are going to listen to this and watch this stuff and question these things. And again, we'll go into this later in a podcast, I'm sure. But the idea that, you know, how do you believe in God when you have cancer? Or how do you believe in God when you lost your mom when you're 7 years old? And how do you believe in God? And, but, you know, my question back would be, well, how do you believe not in a God? Because do you believe everything is just...
You're just going to die? And
well, different things is random and there's no purpose and there's nothing and there's no meaning and what's the point of doing anything? Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
We choose to believe. I choose to believe that I was chosen to be here in this journey with you.
Yes. And I was chosen to help people see that they can be okay going through hard things. And life is not about just having comfort.
Not even close. I mean, the majority of life is about going through hard things.
Yes.
Majority of life is going to be really hard and suck. And for a lot of fortunate people, maybe it's not going to be for a lot of times, but at some point in their life, it is completely inevitable.
Yes.
People you love are going to die. People you love are going to get sick. Tragedy is going to happen. That is inevitable for
Yes.
everybody, no matter your status, your income, anything.
Yes.
Okay, so that wraps up episode 0.1. Episode 1 will be coming after. Conversations with my terminally ill wife, my beautiful wife.